Good morning. For those of you who don't know who I am, um, my name is Randall King. I am a father, a husband, um, a former athlete, a veteran. Um, I am disabled, and I am a statistic. Um, every time we have another situation of police brutality and death at the hands of the authorities that are in place to protect us and to serve us, I continue to have increased anxiety, stress, and depression. Uh, this last incident in Minneapolis has really caused a tailwind of emotions with me, and so after listening to The Daily Show with Trevor last night, I made the decision to make this video to be shared. When I say that I'm a statistic, 4 years ago in 2016, uh, at the University of Central Florida Arena, of which my daughter was graduating from high school, I became a statistic. Um, at the hands of the University of Central Florida police and related entities. I choose not to go too far into depth with that because we are in litigation, and I don't want to divulge too much information um, to affect that case. What I will do in summary is say that uh, the family or families gathered together um, to show support for my daughter and her milestone of graduating high school, and um, we had been seated at the arena by the ushers and allowed to seat approximately, I believe there were maybe 15 to 20 of us as a group in an area on the second tier. And again, the arena staff directed us to the seating, given the size of our group. I had left the seating area to bring a ticket to my sister-in-law, who was at the front door, so she could gain entrance, and to use the men's room, so that I wouldn't have to do it in between the graduation and interrupt things and possibly miss anything. Um, upon my attempt to re-enter the seating area, a white woman was at the door. I had no idea what her affiliation was, who she worked for, what her authority was. She just was happened to be standing there taking tickets. And I showed her my ticket, and I attempted to go back into the arena to go to my seat, and she stopped me and basically said um, I could not gain entry because it was a VIP section. And at that time, I indicated to her that may be the case, but I already have a seat. My family's already sitting in the area. I'm not going to look for a seat. I have a seat. And um, she then indicated she didn't really care whether or not I had a seat or I didn't have a seat. I couldn't go back in that area. Um, at that point, two other members of the UCF staff, and I don't know exactly what their roles were, but they were employees of UCF, asked me where my family was sitting and that they would go and check to see if in fact I had a seat and my family was there. And if that was the case, then they would just go ahead and just let me go back to my seat. So one of the gentlemen went to do that. Um, the other gentleman, I asked him to go and get the manager of the facility to come and facilitate a resolution to the problem. He then walked off to go do exactly that. He went to go find the manager or the president of the facility. So at that time, it was just she and I standing there. There were other people coming in and out of the seating area. People were going to get seats. She didn't question them. She didn't tell them about whether or not it was or was not a VIP section. She just allowed them to go and find seating. I found that a little alarming, especially because they were all people of non-color or white, however you want to describe it. And so the banter went back and forth, and at some point in the conversation, she just basically said, I feel threatened because you're standing here, and I feel like you're going to physically harm me. Someone please call the police and have him removed. Just as she was saying that, my oldest daughter and my wife had come to the front area because apparently when the employee for UCF had went to go see if I had a seat, he had indicated to them that I was at the front and I was having some difficulty regaining entrance to my seat. So they wanted to come up to find out exactly what the problem was. And so they're standing at the door inside the arena, watching me have this heated conversation. I mean, there was no yelling, there was no screaming, there was no profane language. It was a heated conversation. There's no doubt about that. And at some point, the police came, and one of the police officers at that time well, let me not go into too much detail. The bottom line is that they made the decision that I no longer belonged, that I I no longer was given the right to see my daughter graduate, and that by not having those rights, I needed to be removed forcibly. Again, I don't want to go into too much detail, but the bottom line is they then took it upon themselves to physically accost me, physically harm me to a point where I now have an additional disability that is permanent. I have lost all use of my left wrist. It has been fused permanently. I have lost 50% use of my left hand. That is permanent. There is no going back. I came close to losing consciousness at that point, at the time of the assault. I was going into cardiac arrest. Again, I've stated that I have other disabilities, and those disabilities were exasperated with their physical confrontation. I never raised my hands. I never struck an officer. As a matter of fact, my hands were always at my side during the whole time that they physically placed their hands on me, unlawfully. And I ended up being rushed to the emergency room because I was in physical distress, and the fear was that I was literally going to have a heart attack on the floor, and it was a possibility that I could die. And so I never got to see the graduation. I never had the opportunity to go to the after party, to share with my family and friends this day. Instead, my wife and I spent the better part of the evening in an emergency room getting me stable so that I could stay alive and go home. The only reason that this incident never made national media was because I lived. But it is systematic of something that happens every single day to people of color. We're upset because of this last death, well, this last murder, and we should be. But please understand, this is a small part of the problem. Police brutality and violence against people of color, especially black men or people that they perceive to be black, happens every day. In every state, every economic status. You could be wealthy, you could be poor, you could be middle class, you could be college educated, you could be uneducated. you are a risk of having this happen to you. It has become an open season. Well, let me rephrase that. The open season on men of color has increased. It hasn't just started. It hasn't become a problem. It has increased as a problem, and now it's being videotaped. I want to express to everybody that the deaths are a minor problem. The violence is catastrophic throughout the country. Um, just like my situation, there has to be, well, I know that there is at least 4 or 5 others in the state of Florida, which is the state that I live in, that happened on that day and probably continue to happen. Because since then, I've had 4 other instances of near um, police brutality situations, at least 4 since 2016. Um, yeah, I mean, I can think of at least 4 other scenarios that had the police officer not thought things through too well, it could have escalated to that. Luckily, for their case and mine, because I could have died, they caught themselves before they allowed themselves to escalate a problem. The last situation, however, I was pretty lucky because it happened close to my home, and I happened to know the area supervising sergeant. I mean, I happened to know him personally, and only when I used his name and called him on his cell phone to ask him to come to the site of this altercation, um, did they back down? Because at that point, they figured he's a man of some level of connection that I don't want to have anything to do with. Had I been some obscure person that didn't have the ability to do that, I very well could have been on the ground vying for my life. Um, it really is that dire for us. The looting, um, and the burning of property is something that we just cannot do because all we're doing is we're biting into the narrative that we are animals and that we are out of control and that we need to be beat down in order to be subjected to some level of authority. Civil disobedience is very much appropriate for the situation, and actually we need it. We need youth, we need old, we need people in my generation to stand up and say enough is enough. But what we also need is our non-color brethren to stand up and say that we are in alliance with them and their right to become, or not to become, to be treated as human beings. Much like the civil rights movement in the 60s and 70s, um, those things could not have been done without the hands of our Jewish counterparts to help us. We need that again, and many more. I come from a family of multi ethnicities. My dad is Scottish and Native and Black. Um, I have many Scottish and British family members, both overseas and in the United States. I have family members that have crossed those bridges on their own. Um, the bottom line is when you see me, you see a man of color, not realizing that a good portion of my DNA is of Scottish descent. Um, it's sad that the things have come to this. It's sad that instead of understanding that race is a social construct to devaluate um, people of color, to make them feel that they are less than, that they are not human, and that they do not deserve the rights as human beings. Um, there's only one race, and that's the human race. There's no such thing as a white race, a black race, an Asian race. There is literally one race, and we need to find a way to be able to live together and to stamp out um, this social design of minimizing a person's worth in this society. I'm hoping that this video um, I'm hoping this video really strikes with some people, especially the people that know me, that either I was raised with in my neighborhood in Boston, or people I went to college with, people I served with in the military, or just colleagues that I have now as an adult, that they see this video and they actually say to themselves, this is someone that I know, and it has affected them adversely. Um, I see a police car or a policeman come near me, I actually have a full-blown anxiety attack because I'm in fear that a scenario will happen again. People, we need to have a change. We need to do something other than the norm that we've had. We cannot allow time to elapse and then we get complacent again, and then society goes back to the way it was, and then another killing happens. Because in between those killings, there are many situations like my own that are happening every single day. That in one small instance during that altercation, a person could die or could be killed because of the inability of the police to do their job and to do their job as they should. Um, I will leave one last note because I hope this really resonates with folks. As an infantry soldier, we are taught there are rules of engagement. We are governed by the federal government. We are governed by the Geneva Convention. We are told when and where we can fire our weapons at a combatant. And in most cases, we have a directive that unless we are being fired upon and we can prove that they are firing directly at us, we cannot fire back. And there may be even some instances where they say even if you're getting fired at, you cannot fire back for fear of hitting civilians or uncombatants, straight fire. Um, we are taught to de-escalate situations, not to escalate situations. And the only time that we are told to allow our anger to fester is when we are in a firefight for our lives. And at that point, anger is a good thing because it keeps you alive. The police are told the minute they go into work, your sole job is to come home. No, your sole job is not to come home. Your sole job is to de-escalate situations and to protect the community. That is your sole job. The minute you put that uniform on, you make a conscious decision to understand you may not live. You may not come home. That is your decision. And so you need to own that decision and do your job. If you have a soldier that's in Afghanistan or Iraq or any other combat situation, they understand very clearly that their job is their first priority. Their first priority is not staying alive. Now, when they are in a firefight and it's between them and a combatant, that's when it becomes a situation where staying alive is paramount. Keeping your men alive, keeping your buddies alive is paramount. But when you go out that gate, you go out that wire, you put the uniform on, you take the responsibility that you may not come home. I don't understand why police don't understand those simple things. I don't understand why police who say that they are good police and we should treat them with respect, when in fact, if they are good police, then they need to police their own ranks and weed out those who are not doing their job, who are racist, who are ignorant, who are power hungry, whatever mental defects that they may have that eliminate their ability to do their job effectively. And there are very good police out there. I mean, I have some in my family. I have friends that are extraordinary people, extraordinary people. And just like I'm calling out the police officers I don't know, I'm calling them out. They need to weed out the officers that are not doing their job. I understand that there are certain instances they may not even know who those people are. I can't give you a statistic of whether they do or they do not because I'm not in their head and I'm not in those police departments. But I find it hard to believe and to understand that these people could go under the radar within their police departments without anybody not knowing their behavior or their motives or seeing some inaccuracies in their behavior. Um, I'm going to sign off. I hope that my words resonate with some folks and you guys act on it. We need to do something because we can't continue. I don't know if emotionally I can continue with the way it's going. It's really done its toll. Thank you very much for listening. I hope everybody does listen to this, and I hope I didn't ramble too much, and I made myself somewhat clear. Have a great day, and God bless.